6:05 p.m. and the first agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next meeting item is correspondence, visitors, and public comments.
There are snacks in the back. That's
Yes, hi.
public announcement.
Yesterday, I went with Highgate's 4th grade for our annual Memorial Day, put the flags on the cemetery field trip. I want to thank the 4th grade teaching team and 4th graders. I've already had comments from community members in Highgate that saw them and how well behaved they were and respectful. So I don't know if Yesha was on, but thank you for that. Hope to continue it as the tradition goes on. Yeah.
Thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is anybody online? No? Okay. Seeing no other public comments, correspondence, and/or visitors, we'll do the agenda review.
I think we have everything. And add
I
the
think, would we,
teacher resignation at the end.
would we change this being an action for resolutions since we wanted to wait to vote, or what would we?
Oh, I didn't hear that part. You don't have to take action
Okay.
if you don't want
If
to.
we don't, okay.
It's just giving you an opportunity to do so if you would. But we can discuss both of them further.
Okay.
And if you want to take action on one,
All right, that's what I was thinking to do. Okay. Thank you. All right. And the next one is approval of the minutes for May 9th, 2023. If anybody would like to make a motion? Peter? Making the motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Devin is the second. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, everybody who's in favor of approval of the minutes for May 9th, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Rennick, you're muted, so we can't, you'd have to do a roll call, so. Are you in agreement? We can't hear.
What's the vote down?
We haven't,
Oh, we're still
we're waiting
working
for
on it.
Rennick.
Sorry.
Can you try saying something, Rennick? Megan's on mic. See if I put my
Oh, there's Megan.
volume up, then everything echoes. So obviously there's a switch.
Who did? Okay.
Hi, Megan. We're voting for the approval of the minutes from May 9th. How would you like to vote for that?
Yay.
So Rennick, I can't hear you, but I see that you are agreeing to approve.
Thank you. Motion carries 8-0. And the next agenda item is the first reading of policies. And we have C21, search and seizure. Is that something you want to bring up, Julie?
I can. It is straight out of the VSBA model policy. There isn't even a place to change the school district name. So this is the first reading. We wouldn't be making a motion tonight,
Right.
but I'm just trying to navigate too many screens here. So this policy is really about searches on school property and what is school property and what's student property and vehicles and so forth. And it's very helpful to make it clear whenever there's a question, whether a parent is asking about searching a student's backpack or a student locker. I mean, it speaks to the fact that, you know, school property is public, so it's not, you know. Dan, you look concerned about something.
Easy there.
No smoking.
Sorry.
Do you need to go?
Yeah, I'm gonna go check it out.
Okay.
Those 2 cars just drove by pretty quick. And
Okay, all right, good. All right, it's probably the best then.
Okay.
I didn't see the cars, I just looked up and it looked barely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair enough. Yes, with the game maybe ending. Okay. So that's pretty straightforward. It's full of legal citations. And the second one is a modification to the policy we have already, which is C24. I have too many tabs, I'm sorry. I'm gonna stop the share because I can't look. And this is a policy that went through Board Goals Policy Group. Devin and Toby worked on it. All of the administrators worked on it. We have phone calls and emails and lots of input on this. Even still, administrators are giving input just on small stuff like developmental instead of maturity and little things like that. But I'm not allowing any substantive changes or anything there. Devin, do you want to talk at all about this one?
Yeah, this, you know, we've adopted this policy in its first form a while back. With a little bit of experience in the merged district, we started seeing situations, particularly in the elementary school, where it wasn't clear who was supposed to be making decisions, and there wasn't necessarily the guidance from, you know, the district as a whole on how to make those decisions and who really has the authority to make those decisions. And we just started seeing different schools, different buildings, you know, towns making maybe different decisions. And so the idea on the elementary changes on this is really just to kind of create that guidance and have a more kind of, you know, singular, cohesive approach to the 5-6 grades that are under VPA. The stuff that then, you know, a little further down talks about some of the VPA 7th and 8th graders. So I'll do my best on this. Toby worked on this section. Just wanting to have in policy and in a procedure how we decide to eliminate or add sports teams, and how we utilize 8th graders, you know, petitioning to let them play in the high school teams. So really just provide some structure around some of those things that didn't have structure in formal policy prior.
Our earlier draft too said that the board decides these things, which then created some tensions, because in fact it's not really what the board decides. So it felt, you know, both you and Toby had that conversation.
Yeah, I think really the key was to clarify who the decision maker is and what the process is. Even if the board isn't the decision maker, we just want to know who it is and the community, let the community know who it is too.
Great.
So, just a few things there.
I have one question or suggestion on page 2, that second paragraph. It is the intent of the board to provide an athletic program for students of both genders that meet the following criteria. I think it would just be cleaner if we say athletic program for all students.
Yes.
It covers everything.
That was a piece of feedback that I believe Christy gave. And I know the original policy that we were drafting this from said boys and girls, and I think, Peter, it was you at that time that said, why don't we just make that both genders? So I think your suggestion actually is even simpler. Because I think that's, so we will do that. But I didn't want to do that without because it was a sentence that was created by this board, I wanted to make sure that see, it's done.
I like it being laid out, because it's been a big issue in prior years. The second bullet point in red, petition
Yep.
Vermont Principals Association to use 8th grade students. I
And we
like
do that now.
Right,
Yep.
but I like it being put in there, so if anybody, there's usually
Somebody who has feelings about it.
very much
Sure,
so
absolutely.
having it in writing, I think is gonna be.
Yeah, and there's a lot, you know, we talk about 5th and 6th grade students, you typically do that for maybe field hockey, it's always a sport that isn't happening in the elementary school. It's gotta be developmentally appropriate, you don't want 5th graders in a sport with, you know, great big tall 8th graders where it's just not the right developmental fit. So all of those things come in, are part of the decision-making process, and we're working as an elementary admin team. One of the administrators is actually gonna do some coordination with ADs to really just sort of say, okay, and we don't necessarily have to follow, the VPA is very structured about how many games you can have for you don't have to baseball, basketball, how many games you can do for soccer. But we just wanna make sure it's similar or the same, and not like 30 for one school and 12 for another. So, those kinds of pieces we're gonna work, and we actually started with a document where we went around to all of the athletic directors and Franklin Rec, and we got timelines for registration, and what's your process for this, and, you know, so we compiled all that information, and that's really gonna help with that piece.
Don?
I want to go back to Peter. Peter, I'm trying to find out where you were. You said page 2. Are you right here? This is what concerned me.
Right here, yeah.
Okay.
It got changed to all students.
Right. And then down here, for participation, upwards participation for all students on an equal basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
I was focused reading that when you said page 2, and I didn't want to leave where I was. Okay. All right.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Devin. Moving right along, we're gonna do presentations and discussion item.
Jen, I had a question on,
Oh, sorry.
C21. I'm just
Certainly.
gonna, the side note on the bottom where schools may obtain blanket permission to search vehicles by requiring parking permits for students. My only question is there something for the adults also? Is there a parking permit pass that they have to sign as well?
Yes.
Okay, that includes the blanket permission? Okay.
Is that true in the other schools as well? I know that it's true here. Is that true in the other schools? Because it's a district policy.
I don't know that it is. But this is a student policy.
Yeah. Just-
But
The only reason I bring it up, I have no objection if it's for everybody,
mhm.
but if it's only for students. I know there's a difference between a privilege to drive to school as a student and I gotta drive to get to work, but
Without that, we need reasonable suspicion. Okay. All right, this is a long
So
presentation.
now we're gonna have a guidance presentation.
We have Tyler Meeks here.
We do. Was Lauren
I think we're going to do the aspirations
do
presentation
it?
first because Laura
Okay.
has traveled further to
Yes.
come here today.
First, we're gonna do the Aspire program.
Yeah, we're done.
Yes.
That is fine. Let me,
I'm sorry, what was your name again, please?
Lauren Hood.
Thank you.
okay, Lauren, bear with me. Doing this all on one screen.
I did make some copies of some things I'm gonna talk about, but I didn't keep anywhere near enough, so. Something shared, actually, I don't know where that- I don't know if Dan knows what's going on.
I don't know.
Kelly's on the folder.
Kelly, do you have one over there? Or you got one?
And we have some documents
Dawn,
that
can you share?
Lauren shared
Thank you.
online that we can make sure.
Don, do you want to share with Kelly? to
Oh,
see
yeah,
it?
that's fine.
We'll make sure you have a copy.
I'll be good.
Yeah, sure. Set? Okay, so thanks so much for having me to this meeting tonight so I can tell you a little bit more about the partnership between MVU and Aspirations. So I'm Lauren Hunt, and I'm an Aspirations School Specialist, and I'm also the VSAC Curriculum Lead. And I use she, her pronouns. So in the folders, just to orient you to that, what you'll find in there on the left-hand side is a rubric and some data that Aspirations Steering Committee looks at. And then on the right-hand side, there's an action plan. So we'll get to that too as we kind of move along, but just wanted to orient you to that. So what is Aspirations? Aspirations is part of the VSAC Outreach and Education Department. That includes the EOC, which is the Education Opportunity Center, Gear Up, and Talent Search. So the EOC works with adult learners who have not yet gotten their four-year degree. The Gear Up and Talent Search programs work directly with students who are typically first generation and of moderate income families. And then Aspirations works in a capacity building model with schools. So Aspirations was created in 2014, and this was all out of some research that VSAC did that found there was a gap in aspiration rates between first generation students and their peers. So out of that research came the Aspirations goal, which is to build the school's capacity to graduate all students with a plan for future education and training. So Aspirations has worked with 6 schools. That includes Lamoille, Bellows Falls, Hazen, Spalding, CVCC, and Twinfield. And we're currently working with Harwood, of course MVU, and we just signed on Brattleboro. So Aspirations has worked over the past year actually to create this video that I'm hoping we can watch. And in some ways it's really challenging to talk about what does Aspirations do, because Aspirations is so different at every single school and it's tailored to every single school. So we'll watch this and hopefully you'll have a better understanding of Aspirations.
Now, am I going to want to turn my volume up for this? Am I going to get weird echo? Let's find out.
Yeah.
Graduate. What's next?
Let's
But
stop that.
that's not all.
Go ahead.
We'll do it all over.
At VSAC Aspirations, we believe that every student should graduate with a plan for what's next. But that's not always easy. That's where Aspirations comes in. Aspirations School Specialists provide long and short-term consulting at no charge to schools. Students need clear directions about options, cost, and support. And for educators and parents, it can be equally confusing to be an informed guide. We focus on collaborating with schools to purposefully map out when, where, how, and what information students and families receive in high school to make planning for life after high school easier. By using our coaching and facilitation expertise, we look at data with each school to build their capacity to move all students forward after graduation. Not just college, but apprenticeships and training that keep our students and our economy fueled for the future. From professional development for educators to redesigning advisory to field trips and parent information sessions, we collaborate with your team to create a scope and sequence that meets the needs of your school community. Backed by VSAC's 60 years of experience helping students and their families save, plan, and pay for education and training, we're ambassadors of change. Aspirations continues to collaborate with middle and high schools across Vermont, and our goal won't be reached until every student graduates with a plan.
Okay, so hopefully that gives you a little bit more
Sorry.
context.
I don't know if you noticed, but Megan and Ryan couldn't hear it. They were asking if there's a link that they can go and watch it.
I'll make
Okay.
sure, Lauren, that we can figure that out and put it on our website. That'd be good.
Great, sounds good. So this is our Aspirations Steering Committee. In Aspirations, we really try to make sure that our steering committees are made up of diverse stakeholders. And so, as you can see, we have a principal, work-based learning coordinator, director of guidance, teachers. There is something missing from this, and that is the middle school voice and a student voice, and those are things that we continue to talk about, and we're going to make sure that those perspectives are heard and represented. You can go to the next slide.
Yes. Derek, did you hear that it's still muted? So they can't hear. Okay. I think that should work now.
So the steering committee takes the Aspirations rubric, which you have in your folders if you wanted to take a look at. And the rubric assesses a school on their college and career readiness with 8 indicators in different stages per indicator. And so the process of the Aspirations Steering Committee was to decide where MVU is at per indicator. And then use that as a baseline, take the rubric each year, and kind of be able to see our progress through the years. Also, the rubric is really helpful because it kind of offers us to show where the opportunities of growth are. We also, at length, discuss data. So in this past year, we looked at the senior survey from 2022, and also Aspirations does their own survey that we do in the fall, and that's with educators and students as well. So we look at that data and the senior survey data, we discuss it, and we look for opportunities for growth. The steering committee also noted through all of our discussions that, MVU has a lot of post-high school education and training opportunities, but they're not always communicated to students and staff. And so members of the committee decided that they would inventory departments and see what departments are teaching across post-high school education and training. And so that information is going to help us develop a scope and sequence so that we can then also communicate what's happening at MVU to students and also to teachers. Okay, next slide. So I feel really privileged to have done 2 professional developments in the first year of this partnership. I think that's really excellent that MVU has taken the time to do that. Our first professional development for all staff was career connections in every classroom, and that was where we showed staff a number of resources about how they can connect careers to their classroom. They had an opportunity to discuss this and then think about ways that they can implement it in their classroom. The MVU Data Dive was one where we essentially shared the data, or at least some of the data, that the Aspirations Steering Committee has looked at. They did a jigsaw where they were able to talk about that data, and then they were able to come up with some action items and goals. And we felt it was really important for them to be involved kind of in this process so that they kind of know what the Aspirations Steering Committee is up to, and also to encourage buy-in, because we're going to be in the next few years encouraging more staff to engage in this process and different initiatives and events. And so this is our action plan, and it's also in the folder. It's a very rough action plan, but to that point, we've developed subcommittees And the subcommittees are based on indicators from our rubric. And the rubric showed some areas where MVU has room for growth. And the steering committee saw areas where they were passionate about certain things, about improving. And so one of the subcommittees is inform students and families and communication events and field trips. So that's what they're going to focus on. The other subcommittee is curricular integration and educator agency, as well as professional development. So those both subcommittees, they have different indicators in them, but they kind of go together. So ahead of today, we're going to be meeting on the 25th and as well on June 19th during in-service to discuss more about the subcommittee's work. There are, if you wanted to check out the ideas that have been generated in that action plan, if you flip through, you'll see under each subcommittee some of those ideas. We definitely need to whittle it down to decide what we're going to tackle for school year 23-24. And so that's what we're going to be doing in the next few meetings. And then in years to come, we're going to continue to complete the rubric. We do that every year. We're going to continue to discuss data. We're going to work on our goals per subcommittee, meet in subcommittees and steering committees, offer professional development. That's something we know we want to do. Implement our plans and goals. And then in our final year is, of course, about implementation, but also about sustainability of the program and celebration of the partnership.
I know Megan has a question.
I was just going to ask, Megan, you have a question, Megan?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
So I apologize if this was already covered. We didn't have sound for a while. Looking back at the survey numbers, they seem very, very low. Can you explain how we used those results to sort of guide decisions when, you know, by what I saw, if you want to go back in the presentation, it looked like only a handful of students actually responded. Is that accurate?
So if you're talking about the slide, which had the baseline, so this is...
No, it was a few forward.
So that was senior survey data, and so...
Oh, that's from
Okay.
the 2022 VSAC senior survey that's
Yes.
sent to kids after they graduate.
No,
No.
they
Gotcha.
take it in their final year.
And I can speak to that too, if needed.
Great.
Yeah, and so those are seniors that are represented here, and the numbers might seem different because in the senior survey, there's a point where the data kind of diverges into two groups, where it's talking about students who chose to pursue education after high school and students who did not. And so that's what you're seeing there. I kind of just put a snippet of some data that we've looked at. And so the left side is MVU data, and the right side is Vermont data. So I hope that helps a little bit. And of course, we take into consideration how many students are filling out these surveys and take that into consideration. But I think it's also helpful to look at the data and see, like, okay, well, maybe there are opportunities to for growth in these certain areas. I hope that answers your question.
I'll just add that one of the things that looking at the data showed us was that we need more students to take the survey. So one of our CIP goals is around getting to 85% participation in the senior class, because that is the recommended minimum participation that VSAC has to have accurate data about the senior class. Also, the VSAC survey is administered every other year, so we're in an off year this year, so we're going to administer a similar survey, which I was working on putting into Google Forms today, so that we can track the data year to year and just create that expectation and part of the routine as students graduate.
What's the current participation rate?
I think we were at 59%, does that sound right? 59% last year.
Okay,
So
thank you.
My hope this year is that to have the seniors take the survey on June 14th, right before their graduation practice. So they are to bring their Chromebooks to graduation practice and then turn them in after that, unless they are buying them. And then after that, they will get their graduation tickets. So
Very clever.
so if they, so that'll be the kind of the carrot to get them there and have them all participate in the survey. I realize it's a little bit later probably than what, I didn't realize it was later than what the survey should be administered. So next year we'll plan a little bit something different.
Caps and gowns next year.
Yeah, caps and gowns, maybe. We'll tie it to caps and gowns, which we get in May. So, yeah, but that's the idea, to help increase the participation rate for next year. Well, this year and for next year's data.
I'm really pleased to hear that, because I have a great deal of respect for VSAC, worked with it for a long, long time. But when I saw your numbers, I was a little skeptical of your data. So I'm glad to hear Jen and Dan say that we're going to get more people responding.
The rubric, and I apologize for my ignorance, but what is it just survey information? What is the information that's
In the rubric?
in? Yeah.
So the rubric is based on some research from McDonough and Dorr, and also another college, I believe. But we kind of took that research and decided on specific college and career readiness indicators. And we use those indicators to create that rubric so that schools could assess themselves on college and career readiness and their capacity to be doing that work, essentially.
So it's telling you like a percentage of the students that are ready versus that aren't?
I
Or-
wouldn't say it's telling you a percentage. It's telling you by certain indicators. So one of the indicators is informed students and families. So how informed are students and families on the different resources of post-high school education and training opportunities at the school. And then the school assesses themselves kind of on a stage 1 to 4. I think it's, I forget what the stage 1 is, but stage 4 is up to deepening. So it's kind of a continuum of growth, if that makes sense.
We had a conversation, the steering committee discussed each indicator, and we self-assessed individually, and then we came to consensus as a whole group about where we thought we were, and we used the data as part of that input. So the data from the surveys didn't directly correlate to the scores on the rubric.
They're just both used in our process for action planning. So we're not just using data and we're not just using the rubric, we're using both to kind of help support us in figuring out what are the actions that are probably going to be best utilized to create impact.
And it sounds like it's an ongoing thing, so you'll look at it again. What did we do? What
Yes.
changes did it make?
Yeah, we do the rubric every single year. And Aspirations is a 3 to 4 year program, so by the time we're in year 4, we're hoping that we see where there are indicators that are kind of lower in certain stages, that they are higher in stages.
Thank you.
So we are in year 1 or 2?
Year 1.
So we have a 4-year agreement.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Lauren, the only question I have is, I'd love to have your data and copies of your materials. So I shared some of the information with the board, but one of the board's goals for the district is increased post-secondary outcomes. And I'd love to just see what you have so we can add that to the mix when we report out.
Sure, yeah. And I don't know if sending it to Dan and then whatever works.
Sure, that works.
That's my, and I have, just for the board, you have both the 2018 and the 2022 VSAC full reports in your board folder. Go find where they are. They're under documents for the board, but there. Make sure I flag them for you in some way.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
Is the difference in years, sorry. Is the difference in years, you said 2018 and 22, is that just, I'm assuming because of COVID, there was not one, a survey given?
Correct.
Is that correct?
So that, and also the VSAC senior survey, they do it in even years as well.
Right. And the questions were not the same from both surveys, so it was hard for us to do a complete comparison, but we could in some areas.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
This is probably a loaded question, but how does MVU compare to the other schools you work with?
Oh, okay. Well, I would say that I've really enjoyed working with MVU, and I think the excitement that they bring is probably the most enjoyed part of my job, because I get to come to each meeting, steering committee meeting, and have a group full of people who are so engaged and excited about this specific work. And that's really exciting to me because this is my job. So yeah, I don't know about necessarily comparison, but I would say that the excitement is really the best piece. And if we can keep that excitement going through all 4 years, I think we're going to do a fantastic job.
How many schools do you, how many schools do you personally work with?
I personally currently work with one right now. As MVU continues in the process, I will probably take on another school towards the end of our partnership. That kind of seems to be the way.
And how many of you do this in the office? That you're not the only one?
I'm not the only one. I was for a little while, and then there's currently 2 of us, but we're hiring a 3rd person right now, currently, to work in Brattleboro. So we're growing.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
I'm working on it, Tyler.
Well, so part of the reason why I had applied for this partnership is because previous to having the steering committee and help of leaders and kind of a group of us working on all of this, the senior survey really lived in guidance to administer. So this last one for the data was essentially a T-bird time we used, which honestly had better participation than we had in the previous year. I think we were in the 20s for percentage of our class, so it has increased, which is great, but I think with this partnership and the work that all of us are doing and the subcommittees, we're really gonna bring that up. That is definitely a goal. So I also, like Jen had said, she's actually gonna be taking the senior survey questions, word for word for the most part, putting those into a Google form, and that will be kind of our senior exit survey. In previous years when I presented, we have done one through guidance, and we've just surveyed the kids so much that we wanted it to align so we really could tell the data over long term and make sure that's informing our practice, both through guidance and aspirations. So the data that I have for you guys today is some of the stuff that I track. And we've had one SAT done here at school. We have one coming up in June. We had 18 students, our students, MVU students, take it in the fall. In the fall, it was November. We have 30 scheduled for June, and 20 of those students are MVU students. This year we did our PSAT during the school day instead of a Saturday testing. They give both options, and that actually has increased our numbers and participation, which is wonderful. We had 64 students in grades 10 and 11, and I just noted the score range. I averaged it because I get a spreadsheet, and we're at 885, and the national average is a 920, so I was pretty proud of that data. 16 of our students out of the 64 scored over 1,000, and the highest score was a 1270. This year we had 72 students that were enrolled in AP classes. That's 102 total enrollments, so out of those 72 kids, some of them are scheduled in multiple classes, so they choose to take multiple AP tests. 58 tests were taken, so that means that not all AP students test. We don't require it. They do have to pay a fee. It's $87 a test. Scores will be released in July, so we did that in the first 2 weeks of May.
Who pays the $57? school?
87, and it's the,
87.
so it's the families and the students pay that. If they choose to, there's a scholarship that they can fill out, that will pay for one test. If a student is scheduled for 2 tests, they fill out the scholarship, they have to pay for the other test. If they take 1 test and they do the scholarship, it's paid for.
We use part of our consolidated federal grant to fund AP testing each year.
I would not want to have a student forego
I know.
doing this because of money.
I agree.
As a board member, I would not be
Thank
happy
you.
with people who made those decisions.
My goal would be to have equitable access for all students, especially those high flyers.
And we put it in the announcements for any student that takes it, that they can get reimbursed for it.
For the SAT.
For the
The
SAT.
AP is,
Right.
they can apply for a
SAT,
scholarship ahead of time. And most students who take the AP test do apply for that. We can talk in future years about other options. I would say that I've met with school counselors before, and when there's been concern about whether a student can take a second test, we've made sure that that's an option.
Good.
There are also lots of different income eligibility options for the AP test. If they are involved with Upward Bound, Upward Bound will pay for the test. So there are other avenues as well.
If they're free reduced, there's a discount through College Board.
Thank you.
If they're enrolled in 4 AP classes, even if they're free and reduced, and they do the scholarship, there's still a fee that the family and students have to pay. So for dual enrollment, we had 55 vouchers used, which is awesome.
Tyler, I'm going to stop you for a quick second. We have some new people here. I don't know that they all understand what dual enrollment means.
Okay, dual enrollment is actually through the state of Vermont. Every high school student in the state, starting the summer after 10th grade up to graduation, they have access to 2 college courses for free. I would say pretty much all of our colleges in the state are dual enrollment partners. Not all of them are early college partners. The difference being is that students can take singular classes through dual enrollment and have that paid for through the voucher. Early college is a year-long commitment only for seniors that is paid for, tuition free. So for dual enrollment, we had 55 vouchers used. So essentially that's 49 of our students took 55 classes. So I just listed some of the classes. Quite a few of those 55 vouchers are through for Introduction to Psychology and our American Government and Politics. Those are our 2 concurrent dual enrollment classes. So what that means is we offer a psychology course here in high school. It's in their schedule every other day, and they actually can elect to take it for dual enrollment credit. So the rigor of the class is very high, and CCB oversees that by the instructor. And then the American Government and Politics class is our college civics course.
And I don't even know if I told you, but we just got pre-calculus approved for next year.
That's
as well.
awesome.
So
Keep 'em
we'll
happy.
be able to offer their dual enrollment option next year.
We used to have more concurrent classes. I think throughout the years and with COVID, CCB kind of has changed their guidelines for how an instructor gets certified through CCB, and we've had some teachers leave who've been certified and we couldn't recertify. So the more the merrier, and I think this is a great option for our students. They do not have to take it for dual enrollment. So if a student is enrolled in our psychology class, for example, it could just be in their schedule. They do the rigor of the course as is, and it shows on their transcript. With the concurrent courses, if they do elect for dual enrollment, they receive a CCB transcript that also goes with their college applications.
Are all these courses available here on this campus, or do
Just the 2 I mentioned.
Just the 2,
Yep,
the others?
psychology and college civics are the 2 that we offer, and it sounds like pre-calculus will be for next school year. The other courses are throughout all of the colleges through the state, UVM, CCB, NVU, a variety of them. And this year we had 10 of our seniors. They enrolled in the early college program, most of them through CCB. We do have a student at Northern Vermont, and that is them essentially unenrolling technically in Power School from MVU. They take a full college course load, and they could receive up to 30 college credits. And then they re-enroll. We recognized them at our awards night last night. They actually have a special cord, and that is new this year for graduation, which we've already received feedback, well done, that it is much appreciated, and the students are doing very well.
It looks like Megan has a question.
Yes, so I'm wondering what sort of support there is in helping students understand these options and not only the benefits that they can reap from them, financial definitely being one of the biggest, but also that they can, you know, if they do early college, they can shave a year off of their undergrad. And also when they're choosing courses for dual enrollment, are they working with guidance to talk about how the courses they select will transfer as a freshman, and whether or not they're taking courses that are going to benefit them when they do go to college and not just end up as an elective when they thought it was going to count for something else?
Great questions. I hope I can get all of them. So in 10th grade, every student that takes our career exploration class, actually I go in and give a presentation on both dual enrollment and early college, amongst other things. I go over what their transcript looks like, because in 10th grade, not all of them asked to see their transcript yet. And with our proficiency-based transcript, there's classes on one side, involvement on the other for a variety of things. We go over what the course selection is like, what classes they choose now and moving forward, because really junior, senior year is where there's more choice. Freshman, sophomore year, there's quite a few requirements. Example, our social studies department. We have global studies as a freshman, United States and Vermont history their sophomore year, and then there's choice from there as long as they receive the credit. So that is kind of, we start to have that conversation in 10th grade. Alyssa Urban, our PLP coordinator, and our past PLP coordinator has had presentations that have that information in as well in a condensed version for our 7th and 8th grade, so they're kind of getting pieces. I'm trying to think of everything you asked. Every student who applies for a dual enrollment voucher and class actually does that with their guidance counselor, and we document that in their PLP as to what class they want to choose, why they want to take it, and what path they want to go on. So that is done for every student. We do have had the situations where a student has taken a dual enrollment class, maybe at CCV, and they go to an Ivy League school. Not all community college credit transfers. And we try to explain that. I actually go into every concurrent class and I do the voucher process with them. I do let them know that their college transcript starts once they have those classes taken, so the grade does impact their future applications and their future GPA in college. So in all counselors, all high school counselors speak to that as well. So I hope I answered everything. I don't know if I got to it all.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it.
Good questions, great questions. And then the next few slides is about our work-based learning program. I know I've brought some highlights here in the past, and we've had 33 students enroll this year. So that's 33 of our seniors that are out in the workplace and workforce, representing both MVU and themselves. I just listed a few of the kind of local businesses: Swanton Lumber, McEwen's. We've had someone at Barry Calibo. We have 2 students at Surface Creations in Milton, St. Albans Co-op, to name a few, but there's quite a few placements elsewhere. We do have some traditional kids that want to work, still keep their job at McDonald's, and that is their path and plan, and we work with them as well. We have 7 seniors that have enrolled in the military. We have 2 additional seniors who are working with a recruiter right now. And the 2 branches that those seniors, the 9, have looked at is the Army Guard and the Air Guard. And this is some year-end highlights from our work-based learning coordinator. So some of these are current, some of these are moving into next year. I don't need to list them all out. You guys have that presentation. We just recently had Husky Injection Molding, a representative, come give a presentation to several of our students. A lot of juniors looking into the work-based learning program for next year, and they actually went through an interview process. So we're really excited that we have 5 students selected for the apprenticeship program there, which is huge. They haven't done this with COVID, they stopped. So we will have seniors there, and we have 2 direct hires in addition to that apprenticeship program. So we have, this is just our work-based learning students, so that's the 33 students mentioned. And then some events and experiences that our students have, and I know I talk about them pretty much every year, but this is some of the things that we really want to put in that scope and sequence, working with the Aspirations steering committee and having that all documented. We want students to have some guaranteed experiences. And some of those are, you know, the PSAT if they choose, SAT testing. There was a DFA field trip that students could elect to go to. So just a few highlights of things that we have already done this year.
I think it's great you bring kids to college campuses
Yep.
and to Northwest Tech.
And that's really in 7, 8, and 9. I would say the 10 through 12 group utilizes that college fair in the fall, and kids can go as many times as they want. It's my favorite one to chaperone. So.
I'm going to take the cookies and pass them, and then take over the presentation.
John, before you,
I faced right here, but.
just a question with the, I believe it's 7, but maybe wrong. With the military, going with the military pathway, do we still recognize them at graduation like we used to in the past?
Yes, that's my job.
That's your job?
Last year, we didn't have anybody, but every other year we have, and I include them in my welcome.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's important.
Yes.
And our numbers year to year fluctuate. This year we just have I would say a higher number than we have in the past couple.
Can we hit the next?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how a lot of our work is integrating this year in a very exciting way, whether it's the work that the guidance department's been doing for a long time, PLPs, the Aspirations project. We're super excited about how things are coming together to really bring alive the portrait of a graduate that our community works so hard on. So we're using a metaphor with our faculty and staff called pathways, really thinking about the different personalized pathways rather than personalized plans, but personalized pathways for students to have success after high school, that success on any chosen path, and using the portrait of a graduate as a framework to help direct that path. So for this slide, we're really thinking about the balance of our proficiency-based graduation requirements and our SEL competencies within the portrait of graduate, and then all these other projects that we're working on, tools that we're using down below there. We spent a great deal of time this year talking about universal design for learning to increase options and choices for our students within classrooms to make it more engaging and accessible for our learners, increasing our parent partnerships, developing our personalized learning plans and growing them for students. We heard about Aspirations earlier this evening. Middle school's been doing work with developmental designs, which is really an excellent program for social and emotional learning. And collaborative problem solving is a strategy that we use in SEL as well. Flexible pathways, we've had excellent flexible pathways for our students here for many years, but something that's become very clear this year is that better coordination and communication about the wonderful things that we're doing, so it's really clear to everybody, these are the options and choices, here's how you can access them, and we're doing good stuff, so let's make sure everybody knows about it. Better community collaboration, and then also the role that student activities play in the paths that students choose and the success that they have after high school. So I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about personalized learning plans and where we are currently, where we're planning to go next, and some of the things that we've learned over the past 2 years. So all students in grades 7 through 10 currently have PLPs. In grades 7 and 8, it's really focused on development. They develop their personalized learning plans, which we host in Google Sites, and they include goal setting, some career exploration. They have pages for each of their core classes, high school and future planning, and then they also have a section that we have called extended learning opportunities. So when they have an experience that doesn't connect directly to a core class, but they want to document it in their PLP, there's a place for it to go. And we are starting a process with students where they're reflecting on the guaranteed experiences that they will have to better prepare them for high school and then life after high school. So an example that I have is that our 8th grade students go every year to the Northwest Technical Center. We just mentioned that a little while ago. This year, we made sure that before they went, we talked about what they were going to see, made some predictions. They had ideas about which programs they wanted to investigate. And then when they returned, they completed reflections in their social studies classes, and then those reflections about their experience were put into the PLP. So we're starting this very predictable process on how students can add different pieces to their PLP, and they'll become more personalized as students proceed because they'll have different experiences. The other big place where the personal learning plan is enhanced, I guess I would say right now, is in grade 10 in career exploration class. They do 3 large units that have culminating projects. All of those pieces are put into the PLP. So there's a post-high school education project where they're thinking about education and training after high school. They do a careers project, and then they create a cover letter and resume. So all of those pieces are being included. And then the last piece is many students who are participating in our flexible pathways have their goals, and they collect evidence within their PLP as well. So, for example, in the fall, when we were in the classroom meeting and the tech center was here, they mentioned the opportunity that students had to access money for different adult courses through their program, CDL specifically. We had 2 students who applied for that program, updated their PLP, and were able to get funds to get their CDL, which is really exciting. Something else that we're doing with PLPs right now, which I'm very excited about and I think we're going to continue to grow, is we have students who are interested in accelerating through certain options that we have. An example is we have a student who has a lot of real life experience in agriculture and wanted to go right into level 1 of animal science rather than have intro to ag, because he felt that he had that experience already. So we took the proficiency-based graduation requirements for intro to ag. We created a set of questions, and he found evidence for those questions and put them all together, and very independently, and he did an excellent job, and so now he's going to be able to enter right into level 1. So I think we have, these small highlights that we're hoping to grow and really improve the experience for students and use the PLP as a tool to help them meet their goals. So what we're looking at next in terms of this bigger metaphor of pathways is a couple times tonight you've heard mention of a scope and sequence, which is a term that we use when we're talking about mapping curriculum. So we're really thinking about a clear 7 through 12 scope and sequence of guaranteed instruction and experiences for students for post-high school success. So we're going to be looking at how to integrate experiences into coursework. We are going to be looking how to use middle school homeroom perhaps, and high school nest, which is our advisory program, to increase those opportunities for students, some of which will then be documented in their PLP. Better coordination and communication around those flexible pathways, because we have them. It's just we're realizing through the surveys that we've done and Aspirations self-assessment that not everybody knows about all the wonderful things that we do and those extended learning opportunities. So students who are having experiences outside of our walls have a way to document that within the PLP and to help create their pathway. Something that we have been talking about, and I'm not sure if it's a next year thing or a year later, is student-led conferences. The materials provided from the Agency of Education around personalized learning talk a great deal about student agency and having an annual meeting where students are at the center and using their PLPs to communicate with their families around their goals. So that is something that we know that we need to explore and move toward. It would be a big shift, so there's a lot of planning that would need to happen there. And then last but not least, things we've learned over the past 2 years, and I will echo what Lauren said earlier. There is so much excitement and momentum around this work right now. It feels like so many of the pieces that we've been working on for a long time are falling into the right places, which is really, it's inspiring, it's exciting, and I feel like we're gonna make a great deal of progress in the next year or two. So we are seeing a lot of interest from students and from families in more independent and non-traditional opportunities. For example, VTVLC options. Students are more interested in those than they've been in the past couple of years. We have wonderful opportunities, like I've said, we just need to better coordinate them and communicate them. We know that we need to build the capacity of the staff to understand that the personalized learning plan is a tool, and here's how we are expected to use it to help students meet their goals. There are lots of wonderful things happening in this building, but we are still at a point where it isn't occurring to teachers like, oh, I should ask students to put that into the PLP. We aren't at that level of automaticity that we need to be. Something that we are finding is that there's a lot of technical detail and logistics to managing this many Google Sites for this many students. Not so much from like a technology point of view, but from an instructional point of view. So for example, I was meeting with Alyssa, the personalized learning teacher, ahead of this presentation. She was like, oh, let's take some screenshots from grade 10 where students have uploaded their resumes and you can like show them what it looks like. And she went to pull them up, and students had put their documents into their sites, but they didn't have the sharing permissions just right. So as soon as she opened it, we couldn't actually see the documents that were there. So little things like, how do you get 700 students to make sure that they're doing their sharing permissions correctly when they're adding things to their PLPs, right? It seems like a small thing, but it ends up meaning that we weren't able to show this really great thing tonight. So there are little pieces that we're still figuring out. I think Megan had a question. I think that's my last slide.
Yes, it is.
You can always count on me. I was wondering, my question is sort of related to that fourth point about using the PLP as a tool. Can you explain a bit about, I guess, how the PLP came to be, and for lack of better words, right now, what's the point? We have students put this stuff in their PLP. How does that benefit them when they're going to look for, post-secondary education or training or job? Is it something like a portfolio that they have evidence of what they've done that they can present? Or is it really just, I guess I'm not sure, and what the point is and how it benefits our students.
I think that's a really great question, Megan, and I think that we're a little late to this work, and I think that that's a good thing. So Act 77, which really outlined the expectations for PLPs, was passed in 2013, and it was also the legislation that included proficiency-based graduation requirements. And so we really leaned into the changes that needed to happen around proficiency-based learning first. And I'm glad that we did, because we clarified what the expectations were for our students. And simultaneously, I saw lots of schools around us create personalized learning plans for students that seemed to be a lot of busy work for kids and busy work for teachers. And so I think your question's spot on, right? Like, how is it a useful tool? And I heard a colleague from another district once say, I wish we called them personalized learning paths and not personalized learning plans, because really it's the process of going through, ruling things in, ruling things out, having the experiences, learning about how to reflect on experiences to become more expert learners. Those are the important things. The documentation, there are benefits to having the documentation to access different opportunities in the future. One of the reasons we use Google Sites is that we can figure out how students can transfer that and access it after high school. Some school districts use other platforms, which then students lose access to when they move or they graduate. So we're trying to be very thoughtful in how we create a plan that is more like a portfolio, that we lean away from the busy work, but that we also use it as a tool for students to practice some of the skills that we want them to do to be more planful about their future, right? So, it's a tool we can use to shift students from being passive vessels where education is happening to them to being more engaged and participatory in the decisions that they're making.
And I would just ditto that. And I think we really want students to be excited about documenting what they're doing, what they're learning, why they're doing it. And we want it to be something that they're gonna feel and be excited about, just like we're excited about. So I think that, to Jen's point, I think it's a good thing that, yeah, we had Naviance, we had students put a goal in once a year, we met the mandate, technically. Was it worth it? Was it helpful? I don't think so, and that's why we're here now. So I think that this is moving forward something that can be really, really beneficial for our students. To find out what's their identity, who am I, what am I good at, what are my strengths, how does this influence me as a soon-to-be adult, so.
Rennick?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Loud and clear.
Okay. So just one question, and this might also be for Dan too. A lot of great data points and stats, like for how many are taking SATs and stuff like that. Do we have total data for the graduating class coming up this year? So I don't know how many seniors are graduating, but will we have like all the numbers for where everyone's going and what everybody will be doing?
After June 14th. So the senior survey we are administering, which will give us a lot of that data around post-secondary plans, where we will deliver data on that later in the summer or in August or September.
Yeah, we plan on sharing the data on where we got with our district goals at the second meeting in June, so after graduation. Even if it's just raw for you to give to me, it's okay.
And in the past, that is what I had mentioned right in the beginning. So the guidance department put a survey together for our senior class only that asked, what is your path? Military, college, career, technical education. We kind of differentiate all that, and we would gather, I think last year, we had 88% of our class fill it out. Not a perfect model, it's changed every year. This is the way that we're going to try to track that on those off years of us not implementing the VSAC senior survey. So we're going to be able to get that 100%, hopefully 100%, that's our goal, right? Data from year to year for the graduating class only.
Okay, and then the last follow-up question, is that just like a bit of a national trend? Less and less students are taking the PSAT and SATs in terms of being able to get admitted to some of these other colleges?
Yes. The country is changing to test optional. So we have quite a few students that look into technical education, trades, certifications, and specific trainings. And the reality is some of those don't need an entrance exam. Me personally, I think the SAT is archaic, and it's not always a good indicator of how a student's gonna do. Whether that's college, military, career. So I would say yes, less and less students are taking it. However, it's maybe not needed for whatever path or pathway that they're choosing. So there's kind of more factors there.
And I would say that as a school over the past 5 years, maybe a little bit more, we've tried to emphasize the PSAT more. It used to be that students would take it on a Saturday, they would have to pay for it. It was kind of a really, it was an option, but you'd have to have access to be able to take that option. We've moved to doing it during the school day. It's inexpensive, so we pay for it through the guidance budget, and we open it up to any 10th and 11th grade student. Not so much to promote the SAT, but to promote the experience of taking a high-stakes test, right? So it's a very different setting than taking the VCAP or something like that, right? We want students to just have the experience, because even if they're not going to take the SAT for college admission, so many occupations require high-stakes testing to be able to do the job or get the license, and we want students to have that experience in a safe setting.
And I would say that having a student sit down, and the reality is, yes, SAT's moving to digital, AP's tests are moving to digital. That is happening in 2024-25. However, for a student to sit down and bubble in their name, some kids, that's the first time they've ever seen one of those forms, to write their name at the top, fill out the circle underneath, and yes, a lot of them did it wrong. Wait, what do I do? So, I would say out of the 64 students that took the PSAT this year, maybe a third of them knew kind of how to navigate that, and that's because they've done it before. So even just those executive functioning skills for that alone, I think can be valuable. So, and we have seen an increase, I would say, with PSAT. I think part of that is moving to a Wednesday test versus a Saturday test and funding it. So, and we will continue to do that. Wednesday test is already booked for next year.
Okay, and then the last thing, is the ASVAB proctored at the high school at some point during the school year?
It's not this year. We did not have enough students who wanted to utilize that here. They chose to work with a recruiter to go elsewhere off campus. But if we have enough students to proctor it, we will have someone come in to do that. We've done that in the past. It's not every single year that happens.
Thank you.
Peter, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to commend you for the presentation. I thought it was really well done because you had the highlights, the lowlights, and I really appreciate the honesty behind it. And even the things, like you said, that are going well, that maybe aren't communicated well enough, you guys are understanding that, and the excitement to bring this up, I just really appreciate that, and look forward to the future.
Thank you.
I agree, that was really good, thank you for that.
You want to comment? Go
I'm
ahead.
all set, thank you.
Are you really?
I did, I made my comment, I'm all set. Thank you.
You're sitting next to Dan, you know. I'm pleased that Peter brought this up. On the PSATs, do you ever get that aha moment for a student who wasn't going to take them, and they took them and they were amazed how well they did?
Oh yeah, every year. I would say every year we have those students that go in confidently and we're like, oof, maybe I need to work on X, Y, and Z, and I should take my Algebra 2 pre-calc instead of just Algebra 2 next year. And then you have the students that are like, oh, my mom wanted me to take this because they said it was paid for, and then they do really well and they're super confident. And just like Jen mentioned, just taking that test, the time test, they have to pace themselves. They know when 10 minutes is up. Like
After the first session this year, they were all like,
yeah, like what is this? Yeah. So I would say we have those aha moments in a spectrum,
Those
you
are
know?
wonderful experiences.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I think we had 4 or 5 of us in here, counselors, Jen, and we just kind of filtered around. We did it in the library, cleared everything out. It was
one sophomore
awesome.
student, he sat down and he took the first part of the test and he was just like, I can't do it anymore. I tried, I worked really hard, this is what I can do today, and he's gonna take that information and make decisions based on that, right? Or be ready for it again in grade 11, you know? It's a great practice opportunity that we can offer that's really low stakes for kids and it's not that hard for us to facilitate.
And that trickles to, like I said, an AP test. If you sign up, I proctor it, you have to pay money typically. If you're, you know, I had one student this year, got through the first section, it was an hour and a half, and he said, I want to leave. I said, you take your 10-minute break, talk with your friends, come back, let's talk before you sit down. If you really want to leave, we can kind of figure this out, but I think you're going to do better than you think you are. And he talked with his friends. He just felt that he wasn't as prepared as he wanted to be, but still pushed through, and you know, I think he'll do well. I think it's those moments of like, I was super confident, but now I know what I need to practice and what I need to work on. And I think that's just valuable for students to feel that and experience that.
One thing that came up here, I think we passed over it quickly, and I don't want to drag this out, but sometime I'd like to hear a little bit more about the number of students take early college. I'm a real advocate for dual enrollment. I wasn't such an advocate for early college, even though I think it's probably good, but we have 10 students.
Correct.
Is that a big number for us to have 10?
Not the highest we've had in the last 6 years. We've had, at one point, we had up to 15 for our graduating class, but we've had as low as 1, 2. So yeah, I'd love to talk more too.
And, because let me tell you what I've heard from colleagues around the state where I've done some consulting. And many times it's your best academic students that do that necessarily, but it changes your student body in the senior year. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, because I'm not practicing administrator, but you know, we've all dealt with that in the legislature. As I say, dual enrollment out was a wonderful thing, pushed hard. But this one, so I'd like to talk, not tonight, but I'd like to know a little bit more about it, because I'm wondering if it's really accomplishing what it set out to do.
And I think anecdotally, I think it depends on the class, depends on which students choose to take that opportunity. We've had in the past where students done a dual enroll or a early college semester, first semester. They felt like they wanted to come back and finish their senior year here for a variety of reasons, whether it was the rigor or experiences that they felt like they wanted. I would love to talk more too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Megan, did you have another question?
Not a question, I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together. It's incredibly helpful. And I think I have said this at least to Jen before, but I will say it again. Thank you for putting the proficiency-based stuff ahead of the PLPs. As someone who is in, well, not currently, was in college admissions, MVU was one of the only schools, and I was in charge of Vermont, one of the only schools who had a transcript that was understandable and not just everybody gets a 3. So I want to thank you from a higher education standpoint, but also for our students, because the schools who didn't take the time to figure it out did a huge disservice to them. And I'm really proud of the fact that that you did not let that happen. So just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
I'm partial. I think we have the best director of teaching and learning, so what can I say?
Not very many people with the titles.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I think you have excitement and momentum right there on top, and I think that came through in your presentation. And I just love the fact that you guys are able to kind of integrate all those pieces and have really the end in mind when kids arrive in 7th grade, that clear 7 to 12 pathway that you mentioned. So it's all really exciting. So great work. It's really great.
Very excited. Because we're doing it again year after year, so you guys will see it grow with us.
Sounds like a good team going.
I think so.
When will you know how many kids are going to sign up for the early college program and the dual enrollment program starting in the fall?
For next year. Typically, so of course, we're kind of actually in the mix of registration and getting schedules out. I'll use an example. One of my juniors applied to early college, and once they hear back, they can confirm. Counselors build an MVU schedule, because once we actually find out in the fall when they enroll in the college to unenroll them here at MVU. So we kind of have to wait until the fall to get current numbers. We have students each year that apply to early college, and some choose not to go, so we don't want to count that in the numbers until we have confirmation of them going and starting the classes. Dual enrollment, however, it's kind of a continuum throughout the year. So students can, I even have students that are right now registering for summer courses, which is going to technically go into the next year's data. So it's a continuum. I'll have that data for the next year's presentation.
Or in the fall, if you want to come back and talk more about it.
A lot of our concurrent courses, the ones that we offer on site for dual enrollment, because college courses are offered on a semester basis, the dual enrollment doesn't actually happen until the second half of the year. They're not actually dually enrolled until second semester.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you. Amazing.
Thank you.
Next agenda item is going to be resolutions. We have the BPA and athletics. So Laura with the BPA, and I'll let you start with that.
Mine's with the federal grant assessment. What do you mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Were we gonna wait on the VPA because he
yeah.
wanted us to?
That's what I was tuning into this and tuning into his email, so my apologies, let me back up. So the VPA in athletics, Toby's not here. He did send an email saying that if we were going to vote, that he would like to be involved in that vote, if we could hold the vote for the next meeting on that. And then Laura could give her federal grant one if we wanted to vote on at least that one tonight. To get that sent in, we could. So it would be after she gives her presentation what you guys would like to do.
Just to say this is not mine.
Well, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It was a suggestion for sure, yeah.
What you put together first.
So I'm not sure if you reviewed it at the last meeting or not.
We
Julie.
did
It was not at the
briefly,
last meeting.
and we had some general conversation, and I gave an overview of what the issue was, but I can't speak to it with the passion if you can. Would you like me to share it?
Sure.
Okay.
So basically, the school districts in Vermont are assessed a federal grant assessment for any teachers funded with federal grants. It started as low as below 10%, but in the last few years has raised it up to over 25% for a healthcare assessment on any teachers paid for with federal grants. So we receive funds over $1 million in our school district, federal funds from Consolidated Federal Program, and we are required to pay over 20% of their salary, above and beyond their salary, but based on their salary, towards this federal grant assessment. So this year alone, we're going into fiscal year 24, it will be over $250,000 that we will be paying. It is my take on that, or my recommendation would be that the state do that differently. I don't think it is a true reflection of the spending for a school district. I also don't think it's transparent with how federal grants are spent. I'm sure that the state has inquired with the feds about the appropriateness of that. But I think every time I have to add that $250,000 into a general fund line item, it misrepresents what the spending of the school district is, because we are not spending it. It is subsidizing teacher retirement health care. So that's basically what this says, with some suggestions about how I thought that they could potentially fund it. Whether or not we want to include that information is purely up to the board, obviously. I would recommend, if you want to include that language, my recommendation would be for these funds to come either off the federal grant, kind of at the top. We always use that language at the top, or at the top of the ed fund as a whole, and not be distributed to school districts and then taken out of the grant looking like we're spending grant funds and we're not spending. Understanding that there is a problem with the sustainability of teacher retirement and healthcare. I think it should be investigated was my other kind of recommendation, that I think that, you know, like a lot of other legislation that's recently been passed, that, you know, there should be some kind of investigation into alternative funding sources and something that's a little more maybe comprehensive than just putting it on the school districts.
Laura, you said that you have agreement with other colleagues in different districts on this. Do you know, is anyone else bringing this forward besides us?
Not that I'm aware of, no. I'm not sure that all school boards necessarily look for more financially related issues. Kind of like the people that I talked to at Tri-State most recently this weekend, it seemed to be those really hot topics. Those, you know, not that this shouldn't be a hot topic, but, you know, some of those that are a little more.
Some districts don't use it the same way, right?
Not all of them do. We are, as I've said multiple times, we are currently investigating not utilizing it as much for salaries and benefits. We've been working on that. Unfortunately, my grants manager and curriculum person today went to a federal grants training, and we're told that because we actually receive a waiver for one of our schools, because the free and reduced price percentage has dropped below 35%, we have to apply for a waiver to receive these consolidated federal program funds. Because of that waiver, it kicks us into sort of this other category where we have to spend 125% of our allocation divvied consistently by each school based on the target and ranking. I'm hoping that doesn't throw a wrench in our plan to kind of reevaluate how we're using them. When I saw that, I'm like, whoa, we're gonna figure this out. I don't care if it takes us every day for the next 20 days to figure this out, because it's just, if we can avoid it, we want to. Just so utilizing it for different things like professional development and curriculum and software and literacy or math materials or whatever. And now that the procurement threshold is at $40,000, it's gone up significantly. It makes it a little bit easier because we're not bound by all those procurement rules. They all qualify as micro purchases now. So that was really the reason we had originally shifted to all salaries and benefits with the grant, was because we were trying to avoid the very tedious and cumbersome procurement process. That has been a little bit, alleviated to some degree. So it's just, I know, it's awful, isn't it, Christy? But basically, we would like to use all of our million point whatever dollars for our kids and not necessarily have it be spent in other ways, so.
First, I want to start off by, excuse me, saying I think the concept behind what Laura's proposed is good, and I think we need to move something forward. I called Laura today. I was on the run between being a plumber and being a grandfather, and said that there were some things that I would like to see reworked in this, taking it from a perspective of somebody who's going to look at the resolution and say, yes, this is something we want to move forward. So we can attempt to do it here, or I'm willing to work with Laura or anybody else that's interested to bring back, I don't want to say a revision because people may not agree with me, okay? But let me tell you, my perspective on something like this is you need to decide what you want the end result to be. And I think as I read through this, and I'll just give you a couple examples, and as I say, and Laura said when she called me, I don't know what time it was, but it's probably near the end of her work day, I said, I just got a call and I have to leave and I will get back before you go to the meeting. But if you look at the last whereas, I think the whereas, as you move through them, I think they're really good. The whereas, the assessment is set at an exceptionally high rate of over 20%, it's continued growth. I think that's good. I think that we're educating people. I think they're all good. But the next one, whereas if funding is deemed necessary to support the Vermont teachers, alternative funding mechanisms should be explored. I would eliminate that because that's not really our job. If we say we want it eliminated, let the legislators or the VSBA Resolutions Committee say what they want, because I don't think the VSBA Resolution Committee, personally, if I was involved with them, I'm not going to say if you deem it necessary. It is necessary. We told you right in the beginning that it is not helping us. It's a requirement that hampers our ability of school districts to fully utilize the grant funds. So as I said, I may take it from a different angle, and my angle may be wrong, but I would eliminate that one because that's not our problem. The problem is they're taking our money, and so why say if it's deemed necessary? I'm sure it's necessary. And the other thing is, when it now therefore it be resolved, I like the statement, the requirement for school districts in Vermont to pay a federal grant assessment to Vermont teachers for teachers funded federal grants shall be eliminated. End of discussion. We want to eliminate it. If you want to include the other things, fine, but I don't really think that we should do the work of the legislature and say, try funding models, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that. I think the bottom line, as I first heard Laura mention a month ago, is we want to keep the money. And so we're telling you, therefore, it be resolved that eliminate it. The next one says, shall investigate. If they aren't smart enough to figure out how to investigate it, get more money, again, that's their issue. So if you want to pass it tonight, that's fine. If you want to work through it, but just those are just some of the red flags. When I was preparing for this meeting tonight, I go, ooh. So that's why I give Laura a chicken. But it's up to you. I think the concept is good. I think it's a motion, resolution to move forward. I think it could use a little more work.
Trim it. Trim it is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I think so. And see, the other problem I have, I never write anything at the beginning the way I want it to be. I just want to see if it'll stick. And I think it is. But I think I don't want to take and help the legislature do their jobs, and I don't want to help the SBA do their job. But it's good. It's good thoughts there. And the end result is, we don't care what they do as long as we get rid of taking it out. At least I don't think so. I don't want to.
Well, and that is honestly why I included that language, because I didn't want to speak for the board. If you believe that, you know,
so
the ed fund should subsidize this, I just don't think it should go to the schools first. That's my main point, is that it should not be, it should not then reflect that the schools are spending money that they in turn are just turning around and giving back. So, but that's why I included it. If that's not the will of the board, then yes,
So Laura, that's 3A, right? What you were just describing.
Directly allocated from federal grants at the state level, specifically designed and utilization funds from the ed fund at the state level, yes.
So is that's really kind of what you have in mind as the preferred
Right.
solution?
Right, because I don't believe.
Because it's unlikely they would stop taking any
Exactly.
money at all, right?
Exactly. I
But
think
we
there's
just
a
want it to be
commitment
done
to
in a way that it doesn't show up as extra costs in our district budget.
You know, maybe they can take some of the money they're gonna serve from, people pick up water bottles and turn them in. I mean, I don't know how to do it. I think they passed that. Wine bottles and water bottles. Don't bring a lot of money though.
Well, I can find plenty alongside the roadside, so we can start now.
Wine bottles, you can make a pretty good income.
So do people want to see this trimmed up a little bit, and maybe Dawn can
Just
help
as they
with
were
Laura,
gonna
or
be
do you want to do it?
looking at the other one again anyways, we could do the same with this.
Right. Trim it up a little bit and then.
And I didn't want to interfere because I know this is a big day for Toby, with his daughter playing, and probably his last chance to see her in high school. I'm just gonna give him a jingle too and just share a few things, but, and he can accept them or not. That's why I did this one. And I did not want to write these, so I did not volunteer to write these at the beginning, because I didn't think that was appropriate either.
So Dawn, you brought up before, I think one Toby had, is especially sounding like we're probably the only district that's going to bring this forward. You're going to be looking for a sponsor, someone to speak on this, and I certainly don't feel.
I definitely think it should be Toby.
But what about this one?
Oh, this one here? I think Laura, certainly. I think that
Okay.
she has the background of it.
I'm keeping my mouth closed. Lesson learned.
No, and please don't take this as a criticism. I'm only
No, I
telling,
was
I'm just
thinking-
trying to help you or help us get an amendment that they don't, this is what will happen. I've seen it happen too many times. There's a callback. They'll call the superintendent's office or they'll call the board chair and say, we really like what you want to do, but there's too much here. Or like the last sentence, a copy of this resolution shall be transmitted to the Vermont State Board of Education, Agency of Education, Teachers Retirement System. That's not appropriate to tell them. They'll send it where they want to send it. I mean, and the legislature will send it where it wants to send it. All we want them to do is to send it to somebody so we don't lose our money. Okay? So, you know, I think we can work through it and come up really well. But going back to it, I would say maybe a third, maybe a half of the resolutions the years I was on the committee, they pick up the phone and they say, can you get hold of your board chair? We like it, but we have 3 suggestions or a suggestion. But because these have to be approved by the board, many times the person will say, I can't agree to that. I gotta wait till my next board meeting and run it by the board. And so it takes a lot of time. I'm not saying we can write the perfect resolutions, but I'm just looking for things that maybe we don't need to say.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. But, you know, if in the end Laura and the board feel this is the way to go, fine with me.
What are you thinking, Jen? Sounds like consensus.
That's
the way.
Yeah, trim it up, and then Don is going to call Toby about his resolution.
I'll call Toby, but also set up a time to with Laura.
That'd be great, and you're
For
gonna
next
guide
meeting.
Toby a little bit more, probably a little bit more to elaborate on his, that's what I was saying, give him some suggestions. And then we can present them at the next meeting and then do a vote.
Great.
Laura. All right, Laura again. The next agenda item is warrants.
I apologize apologize for not having those. That was away at a conference and you had to table those and it was still on the agenda, so I apologize for that for last month. But these are the warrants for the month of April. And I don't know if the finance committee person wants to
Join and Deborah.
Okay, so I have it up. So for accounts payable, $1,181,417.40. For the payroll checks, $48,926.37. For the payroll other disbursements, $1,761,798.98. And payroll deductions, $609,922.27. For a total of $3,602,065.02.
Do I have a motion to accept the warrants?
So moved.
Dawn is the first.
Second.
Devin's the second. All those in favor of accepting the warrants, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries 8-0. Next will be the food service management contract renewals. Fiscal year 24 SFA fixed price and paid meal information.
So I included two different things. So the first attachment is the actual renewal documents that are required by the state. They are separate renewals. We created an RFP and we were allowed to create one RFP and go out to bid for food service management for all of our schools except for Franklin. But when we award the contracts, they have to be separate. We are allowed to renew up to 4 times on it, so it ends up being a 5-year contract, up to a 5-year contract, but it's only 1 year at a time. This would be a proposed renewal, the 4th renewal, so the last one possible. This renewal is for Highgate, Swanton, and MVU. As I said, Franklin runs an in-house program. Every year, the state calculates a maximum allowable per meal price increase based on the CPI or the Consumer Price Index. Because of such inflation, basically, and we all know that food costs are a bit out of control. That CPI was set at 8.4% this year. As you can see in the chart, there's also a chart that breaks all of these costs down as to what was proposed in those. I tried to put it in like a summarized chart, maybe not necessarily super summarized, but the average increase proposed from the Abbey Food Service Group is 6.6%. So as I said, the maximum allowable is 8.4. The average increase is 6.6 for our schools. But in the bottom of that chart that I added as the second attachment, you can see each meal percent increase. So we have National School Lunch Breakfast, National School Lunch Lunch. We have snack. We have a management fee that is not allowed to change for the term of the contract, so if it's renewed for 4 years, that management fee cannot change, or it would trigger us to go back out to bid. We have CACFP, supper, snack. Those are child and adult care food programs. That's our after-school and summer programming, suppers and snacks. We then have summer breakfast and summer lunch as well. So mostly just looking at the left-hand side of the chart at this point. But I'd be looking for approval to award this renewal to the Abbey Food Service Group for Highgate, Swanton, and MVU at an allowable increase. The information on the right of the chart is more just a reflection of the paid meal price, just because I think it is related. Because of universal meals, that you're no longer required to do the paid lunch equity calculation, which means we are no longer required to set a fixed price, a paid meal price for students to pay. We've always had to do that in the past by statute. That has been waived. All students receive their first meals, reimbursable meals for breakfast and lunch for free. If they're purchasing a separate meal, those costs are reflected on the right-hand side of the chart here, and those do not have to change. Those would remain the same. I've also noted the adult lunch and breakfast prices. The only change there is 25 cents in Highgate, Swanton, and MVU, and then $1 at Franklin, only for non-staff adults. But for students, everything will remain the same. And I do not need the board to set an actual paid lunch rate.
And correct me if this is incorrect, would somebody like to make the motion for Laura to move forward with a 4-year food service management contract renewals for Highgate, Swanton, and MVU?
I'll make that motion.
A renewal for the 4th year.
Fourth year.
Yes.
Peter's the first.
Question.
I'll second.
And Don's the second.
Go for it then.
Don, your question?
Who's Julie Darrell?
She is the, her title, she's like the head accountant or chief financial officer for the Abbey.
Okay.
She's wonderful to work with.
Then I was gonna second it, but thank you. It's good.
Get that second before we
I also
start
have a
talking.
question. I'm not
That's
sure
what we
if
should
this
make in
is
second all motions.
applicable here, or you probably know you to Laura. Who decides like the menus and stuff for the kids? Like, is it specifically in the Abbey's hands? Is there any sort of like?
So I think probably where you're going with that is, are we allowed to tailor those or give feedback, or who do we involve in that process? There is a committee in every school, a meal advisory committee that's allowed to, what's required to meet at least once a year. A lot of our schools it meets even more than that. And that is the entire point of that, is to you know, provide feedback and try to open up conversation about what we're offering, you know, student participation, all of those things. But I will say that there are many federal regulations and laws that regulate what can be served as far as nutritional analysis that have to be done, how whole grains, how much fat, how much protein in every single meal. So, and it's also a public institution providing a lunch for $2, $3.46. So there's a lot that goes into that. But I very much encourage the participation of people in that advisory committee, because we have moved our programs in very positive directions because of that feedback.
Yeah, just 2 quick points. One, we recently met as a committee at MVU, students, parent, admin, and you know, they want the feedback. What's good, what's not good, what meals do you like, what meals do you not like, that type of feedback. And I will say that they will, the Abbey will, with enough notice, be able to modify the lunch schedule. So they just need to know well in advance so that they can do their ordering for it.
Yeah, if somebody could send that information so that I could know more about that, that would be great.
Which school are your children, if you don't mind me asking?
I mean, I guess maybe just, yeah, I
In
guess
general,
maybe. Are
okay.
they pretty much all kind of the same? Because
They all meet separately,
Yeah.
because they're technically separate programs.
The thing that's just interesting to me is that I get there are so many different regulations, but the federal government sets health regulations, and just looking at Highgate's on some of the days, like for breakfast they'll have strawberry crumb bar, and then for lunch it's fluffy pancakes, right? And I'm just like, well, where are these health, you know, coming in? Like it just doesn't seem like. So I would love more information on those, and maybe being a part of those too if possible, because I think we could definitely be serving our kids some better options for them to help with their learning.
Yep.
So yeah,
I
if
can tell
anybody
you, we
send
just
that
recently
along to
went
me,
through an
that would be
admin
great.
review also.
Is reach out to Yeshua.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
he'll be probably on that committee.
Perfect.
And then he'll be able to tell you when the next meeting's gonna be.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. I would say I always, as a business manager, I always say it's a contracted service, and we are paying for a contracted service,
Right.
which means we need to make sure that we have a satisfied product, and I think we've had great experience working with them, so.
That's great.
But I will tell you, it's, you will be exposed to some things that you may or may not agree with.
I usually am, so I won't be surprised.
Yeah.
Dan, are you happy with the service from the Abbey?
I am. You know, our conversation with the kids, they're very open and receptive to feedback, and you know, I think they really try hard to provide a great variety of food for kids, multiple things that they can choose from for breakfast. You know, the breakfasts are still brought to the classrooms in the morning, but they can still go down for a hot breakfast as well. And it's really common to see a kid walking around with really like an egg muffin type of sandwich in the morning. So they really do provide a lot of variety. And I think in my conversations with Desiree Corey, who's kind of in charge here, she says that the one at MBU offers probably the greatest variety of any place that they serve.
Yeah.
For the variety of meals that they have each day.
And I would say, this is what was proposed in this renewal. I think it's kind of important to note that it is our program. So if MVSD board wanted to have a fixed meal price for lunch of instead of $3.46, $25.45 because you wanted to offer filet mignon and lobster, you absolutely could.
Right.
You would have to subsidize your program because the reimbursements you're getting from the federal government and the state would not be enough to sustain that. But it is absolutely in the board's control by statute to have a program that you want.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yep.
I think it's good that we ask questions, but food service has been in a perfect storm. We had the COVID. Then we had the person mainly in charge, maybe not of all the programs, but at the Abbey passed away. And then I think food prices have probably escalated much in the last years during any of our lifetimes. I would not want to be in their shoes trying to run all these programs.
Yeah.
It is tough.
And just like you said, it of course is all dependent on what kind of budget they have to work with. That absolutely makes perfect sense. But it's like Megan mentioned a couple meetings ago, like sometimes it comes off like when you ask questions about these things, everybody's like, well, don't you like that?
Yeah.
The budget is this, or don't you like feeding all kids? And it's like, well, that's not quite what we're saying. We're just saying like maybe we could do things a little bit better in some ways. So.
And if we wanted to have our meal advisory meet once a month, we could meet absolutely, Yep.
Give it to the policy committee.
Any other further comments or
One
discussion?
of you delegate for
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. Motion carries 6-0. All right, so next will be the
New teacher hires.
yes.
So we've been making some progress.
I know.
So the board drive, for some reason when I downloaded the spreadsheet into a PDF, it's so small I can't even read it. So I apologize for that. But I will read the names of the new teachers. We have hired Audrey Lavin as a classroom teacher, Brooke Bissett as a classroom teacher.
Are they Swanton?
These are for Swanton. I'm doing my Swanton list. Lindale Nephew as a classroom teacher, and Cassidy Schwarwin as a classroom teacher, all for Swanton. So last time we met, we had 8 classroom teacher openings. We now have 4 classroom teacher openings. So we are making significant progress. I met with 3 of them yesterday, 2 today. I've just, it's a lot of fun, but I just do them as back-to-back. Teachers are in their prep. I had one college graduate in her hotel room with her parents walking in the back. It was really great. And they are terrific folks that we're excited to have join us. Franklin has a .4 phys ed teacher that we are hiring named Mark Peterman, and he is coming from Pennsylvania, and he has always wanted to come to Vermont. And he is very excited. He will likely sub for us the rest of his, don't get too excited, Mr. Palmer. He will sub for us the rest of the time, likely in elementary school as a new teacher. We'd like to have him work with at that level. And we also have Jonah Moose coming back to us as MVU math teacher. And we have Julia Pepitone, who is a speech language pathologist who's coming to the district, and I met with her yesterday. So I feel like we're hitting some home runs here. with some hard-to-fill positions, and excited about all of them. We're making some significant progress.
Would anybody like to make a motion to accept the new professional hires?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Don. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joanne. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Excuse me, motion carries 8-0.
Now, we have a teacher resignation next, and there isn't anything personal in the letter. You know, sometimes we want executive session because somebody's got a family matter or a medical issue or something like that. This is for personal reasons, and that she's leaving the profession for a time for personal reasons. And the situation occurred after she signed the contract. She's been here, I think, 4 years. Feels like it's been 4 years in one capacity or another here at MVU. But we, because she has signed a contract, I would want board action to accept her resignation and to release her from her contract next year. And that's Elizabeth Schulter. 2 years?
As long as she's not going somewhere else.
She is not. She is not.
I'll move that one too.
Don's the first.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joanne. Any discussion?
Julie, you support this action?
Yes, I mean, she's a very good employee. It was not something she just did frivolously.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, motion carries 8-0. All right, last agenda item to talk about is, bless you, board meeting site rotation for the next school year.
I made a table for you, so you could see it. And I pulled up the old one from 2020, and used it from there, and we had not had MVU in the rotation. I don't know why it felt like we did, but we didn't. I know it felt like it. And then in March, Joanne remembers, because it was like her first board meeting, and then we shut down. So this is bringing back that old rotation, and I'm trying to click the wrong button. I almost exited the meeting, so that would have been great. So, put this up here, pop this out, there we go.
Dan and Christie should be excited.
So, we had some discussions that, did I really just jump in, because I'm gonna jump around her, I apologize.
No, all I was gonna say is, I did get some feedback and did talk to you about that it was not putting MVU into the rotation, being MVU the first meeting of the month, and then the elementaries would be once a month, and doing that and keeping MVU out of the rotation also
Definitely
makes it so that we can not have such a longer span of time getting to the elementary schools. Julie?
And I also think that, you know, having so many presentations, like talking to guidance or talking to students, it's a little bit easier to get students at the middle and high school level. Maybe they're involved with National Junior Honor Society or some other presentation there, get some more student voice. And also the presentations that we give from central office, I think we've done a little bit less of that this year because we were trying to do school-specific ones. And so, and then we would do sort of a COSHA presentation on top of another one. And so maybe if that just sort of balances, each of these meetings at MVU wouldn't necessarily be an MVU presentation. And we might actually hear more balanced from middle school and high school as well. So we have, Jen and I, and Rennick too, I think, discussed the fact that we wanted to have a vote on this now so that principals could leave the school year knowing what the expectation is for next year. The idea is that you would get board reports from MVU and central office the top of the month, and you'd get from elementary principals the second meeting of the month. We would work on, who's in attendance. Zoom certainly does help so that people don't necessarily have to sit in the audience to not speak. They can go home and do that on Zoom. But if they're the hosting school, we would want them to be present and at the table and have dialogue with the board.
Peter?
So I'm looking at your table here, and I'm just looking at, so there's a meeting in Franklin on February 20th, and then in March it goes to Swanton, and then April it goes back to Franklin. I was wondering why we skipped Highgate there.
Yes, we did. I don't know why that happened. So I'll adjust that.
Okay.
You know what it is our board calendar was done through town meeting. We made that agreement. And then I was doing this, at 4:30 or something, so I didn't, I'll double check it. But it's not necessarily we're voting on this particular schedule, but we're voting on this general rotation. We just do it alphabetically. Yeah, it should be Highgate, and then, and we try to get the balance. I also want to call your attention to April, and a couple of these months are questions, and as we get closer to them, we should probably discuss whether we want those to be the first and third Tuesdays on a couple of months. I mean, we're doing it this June because graduation, there's a conflict of that week. We have a lot of activities that week. The April vacation in April, the board may want to change that to the first and third instead of the second and the fourth because of school vacations, things like that. So we can do that at reorganization if you like. But I just wanted to show some of those conflicts in the calendar just so the board can know that they're coming up.
I think we hold Julie's recommendation.
Any other thoughts or discussion? Devin? Joanne?
I think Devin proposed this last meeting. 2 meetings ago.
Megan? Okay, so would anybody like to propose that we would put in for the new school year, starting with the new school year, MVU, meeting at MVU the first meeting of the month, and rotating the elementary schools the second meeting of the month? Dawn? Anybody want a second?
I'll
Here's your
second.
chance.
So excited.
Here's your chance to be famous.
Megan
I
second.
know.
Doesn't want her name
Megan did
associated with
write
my
it.
name.
Megan?
That's what it is.
Okay, Megan is the second.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0, thank you.
I purposely did not put Franklin Library in the table because we don't know that we can be in the library. There will be partitions in the library.
that's
But we
right.
still want to go to Franklin and wear hard hats and see what's happening. They'll probably be in the cafeteria.
Peter, you want to keep that?
No, you can have it.
You have one?
Okay, yes, I do. Thank you.
That's Joan, that's Dawn, I think.
So, future agenda items, in coming meetings will be post, secondary.
I didn't update that, I apologize.
Update, that.
Yeah, because we just did it.
Post-secondary outcomes, continuous improvement plan report, truancy data, financial report, and others.
I want to think ahead to August, and I'd like to see if our maintenance people, they'll come to facilities with us, and maybe we can have Peter as the chair, but maybe I'll have Is it Justin?
Jason.
Jason, I got my
and Stephen.
Okay, Jason also come, just to give people, before we open school and we, what's been accomplished.
Absolutely, that was great.
You agree with that, Peter?
Yeah,
I'd
definitely.
like to see the full board be aware of
Yep.
some of the stuff that's going on.
I have a question as well. I believe Rennick sent me a agenda from like the last meeting before I started, when I first had expressed interest in being on the board. And I believe on that agenda item, I could be wrong, you guys had discussed looking into why enrollment was maybe dropping or not as high and people enrolling their kids in other schools. Does that sound familiar?
Yes, but that's about school choice.
Yes,
And, yeah.
school choice.
We're actually down, we have 7 this year, which is a little bit lower than some other years.
And then I think on there, did somebody say that somebody was going to be looking into that or further, or looking into something more and talking about that further on? I'd have to see the agenda again.
As a future possible agenda item?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That was me. I was the one who was doing the.
Oh, okay, okay, perfect.
That's why I remember it.
Yeah. I'm glad somebody did, because I know I wasn't being very specific.
I got you.
School choice update. Okay. Anything else?
So are all our committees set now, formulated, in place?
Yes.
Where would I find a printout? In the shared drive, would it show them all, or email?
Yes.
Sure.
I can send that out again so that it's current in your mailbox.
Julie, can you put it on the website too? What members are on what committees?
Sure. I'm gonna make a note. I say sure, but I have to write it down.
Members and committees.
I'd remind you.
All right, future board meeting will be June 6th, in the Swanton Elementary School Library, Central Building at 6 p.m. And would somebody like to make the motion to adjourn at 8:07 p.m.?
I'll make that one.
Thank you, Peter. Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Joanne. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.